sometimes you can do everything right and still not get a good outcome. The other night we lost Lily. It was all very sudden and quick. None of us were prepared for it. One minute she was sleeping on my bed, and the next she was screaming in terrible pain. We've been through this with other cats before, so when it happened, it didn't take us very long to figure out what was going on. She had thrown a clot in her spine, and it paralyzed her. It's something that can't be fixed and is extremely painful. And years ago we lost another cat, Finley, to the same thing. We had to take her to the emergency vet, which is the first time I've ever actually had to go to an emergency vet, and she was euthanized around midnight. And the staff was very nice. They let us indulge them with stories and pictures of her as a baby, and they gave us little ink paw prints from her, and then we took her home. We didn't really expect her to throw a clot because, you know, with Peak had cardiomyopathy and his heart was really bad. The oncologist always told us, you know, if he throws a clot, if you see these signs, we were constantly schooled on when was the right time to let him go. But Lily didn't have a bad heart like Peak did. Lily had a very, very mild case of kidney disease. We caught it really early and was able to put her on a special diet and medications, and we started getting her yearly blood work just to be sure we were still on the right track, and she was doing so great on the kidney diet. After we switched her to the most expensive one, she was a diva. You know, the vet recommended this first one, and she just flat out refused to eat for several days because she would not touch that food. So we swapped to a different brand, and she just immediately indulged so much. She was so happy. Like, she literally was like, I would rather starve than eat this garbage. And some people, especially when they have cats with kidney disease, they really ridicule you for giving them kibble. Like, oh, a cat with kidney disease, they need a lot of water, so you should never ever give them kibble. She did not like wet food. She would literally starve herself to death instead of eat wet food. And even when we were trying to get her a diet that she liked, the vet was like, you know, if you just have to go back to regular food, eating something is better than nothing at all. But, you know, on her blood work, it came back that she had really, really high heart enzymes. So she also went to the oncologist. And it was kind of funny, you know, this was only a couple months after we lost Peak, and we go in there with Lily, and she starts introducing herself. She's like, ah, I know you guys. And I was surprised because, you know, they see so many animals, but she started talking about just how wonderful the cat Peak was. I just couldn't believe she remembered. But she's like, you know, there's a little bit of thickening here, but this heart is like basically fine. Lily's heart was fine. And she was like, you know, I believe that the kidney levels can actually affect the heart enzyme. So she didn't really think it was anything to worry about, but we kept coming back every 6 months just to check up. Her last appointment was actually only 2 months ago, and they said her heart was normal. She was completely fine. And even a couple weeks before that, she had her yearly exam and labs done, and her labs were good. The only thing that came back was that she had some elevated calcium levels. The oncologist was concerned about it, but it's like, okay, her parathyroid is fine, so she didn't want to do anything else with it. And I was going to regular vet. It's like, hey, should we be doing something about this? And they're like, no. But the reason I even kind of pushed the calcium is she was a little more irritable than she usually was. She wasn't playing as much. And the high calcium can make you feel a little but apparently high calcium can also contribute to blood clots because calcium is an important part in clotting blood. So we did everything we possibly could to keep her happy and healthy, and the saving grace is it was sudden. It was very painful, but very, very quick. Now Lily has been around since the beginning of my channel. We got her when I was 10 years old. It was November. We got her the day Duke died, actually. On our way home from that, my mom had to stop by a friend's house to pick something up, and she's like, hey, these people in the apartment next to me, they've got some kittens, so if you want another cat. And it was, you know, it was a couple of old guys that just left their garage open, fed stray cats, and there were 3 kittens. And my brother wanted a boy, but he saw that black and white, and he's like, think we can catch that black and white? Because these are wild kittens. And those guys were like, oh, I'm pretty sure that one's a girl. And it's like, oh. My brother and I spent a half hour in this garage filled with old junk, like broken refrigerators, pallets, and we finally cornered her together, it took both of us, behind a mattress. You know, I just scooped her up and there was no fight. And that was how we got Lily. Daisy was very, grieved, so she did not take to Lily at first, though Lily took to her. But after a month or two, they were good buddies. And to be honest, Lily's life was pretty uneventful from then. She was the healthiest cat we have ever had in her entire life. She has had like one UTI, and that was it. Like, I mean, she did have to have a couple of teeth pulled, and, you know, she did develop kidney disease in like her last 2 years or so, but it was also mild. She was never overweight, and considering they were free-fed for most of their lives, it's honestly amazing because all of our other cats ended up overweight. It was actually kind of funny, you know, as she got older, and she's a very picky eater. We called her a nibbler. She liked to take 2 bites, walk away, drove us nuts, because she'd be screaming she was so hungry, so you put out her food, and she'd like, oh, 1 bite, okay, I'm done. Then you put it away. But because of that, and with the kidney disease, she did kind of end up on the lighter side. She was only about like 8 or so pounds. But we put her on a high-calorie food, and it was kind of funny because the oncologist had seen Daisy and Peek before, and she always got on to us about how fat our cats were, and we're like, we are trying. So when the oncologist saw Lily, she's like, did she lose weight recently? And I'm like, yeah, she's a bit of a picky eater. We're trying to get the right food down, but we have her on a high-calorie food now, and she's just like, why? I hate to say this, but it was almost a relief when we got the referral. I'm like, yes, finally the vet can see we don't just have fat cats. But I think one of the saddest things with Lily is that she outlived all of her friends. She outlived Daisy, and Daisy was like her best friend for a long time. You know, she didn't really care for adult cats. Her and Lady had a rivalry going. If you ever noticed how Lily had a little chip in her ear, Lady did that. And from that point on, those two would never get along. People say, oh, your cats don't get along? Do reintroduction. That didn't work because neither one of them was food motivated, and they just love to hold grudges. That's one thing about Lily. She held grudges. After Lady's kittens were gone and she was spayed, Lily became a menace to her and would stalk her and beat her up. Specifically wait until she went in the litter box and she was vulnerable. So Lady has stopped peeing in the litter box and she pees all over the house now. It's a pain in the butt. And just, by the way, in case anyone wants to say like, oh, she got checked out by the vet, we have multiple times. It's been ruled a behavioral problem, and it stems just from Lily. But Lily liked kittens. Like, at first she didn't, but she very quickly would warm up to them. You know, we had a foster kitten at one point called Ty. He was only about 4 or so weeks. We bottle fed him and got him adopted. And in that short time, you know, Lily got pretty attached to him. And you know, when Lady had her kittens, obviously, Lily kept her distance. But you know, after it was clear Windsor was sticking around, she got comfortable with Windsor. She really liked Windsor. And they know Windsor died, and then she lost Daisy, her other friend. And finally, 2 years ago when Peek died, she had turned into a lap cat. She was lonely. All of her friends were gone. We had Bunker, but she didn't want an adult. She wanted a baby. You know, we got Bowie, and Bowie terrorized her at first. Then he kind of got used to her. The past couple months, they actually finally started playing together, but it still just wasn't what she had with Peek or Daisy or Windsor. That said, I know another stereotype, like, oh, cats don't love you. They're heartless creatures. I think I was her best friend, and I know she was mine. You know, I was in charge of her medications and stuff, which, to be honest, you know, after losing Peek, it's like I was so used to being a caretaker for this animal with all these medications and alarms and all these things I had to keep track of, and then there was nothing. It just felt so wrong. And then Lily was like, hey, guess who has kidney disease and he's taken care of? When I would stay up later than usual, she'd walk around my room crying, and if I ignored her, she'd just like loaf by my chair and wait for me. And then, you know, after I finally got in bed, she'd jump up with me. And then in the mornings, if I was late getting up, she'd come in and just sit on the floor and stare at me like, are you gonna get up soon? She has destroyed several coats. She likes others' coats, but she specifically likes mine a little bit more. She would go up to him, scratch them, pull them off chairs, fill them with so many holes. I love that one coat I have. It's so comfortable. It's so warm. It is full of holes and rips from her claws. And you know, sometimes she'd walk around the house and just go, meow, meow, meow. And then I'd look over and she'd be at the door. I'd go like, what? And she'd just shake her head rapidly and then run off. It was just... And she wanted me to chase her. That was her preferred method of play. She didn't like running after toys. She liked it when she was being chased. She was so spunky. I don't know how else to describe it, but other than spunky. You know, she's the only cat I have ever had that would head bonk me. And not just like, oh, rub their cheeks on your leg. Like, no, she would get up on my desk, on the countertops, you know, anywhere to be close to eye level with me. And she'd want me to lean my head over and she could bonk her head against mine. And sometimes she'd even start licking my hair and nipping at to try and groom me. There is plenty of times where if I didn't bring her into the shower with me, she would sit outside and scream bloody murder until she was able to come into the bathroom. If I was in my room, she was fine being in my room. But, you know, if I was going to another room for a while, she would get up and go find somewhere to sleep in that room. She almost gave the impression like she was the kind of person that loved you but would never say it to your face. But you know, she never had to. And she just had so many little quirks. Like, she stopped doing this when she got a little older, but we used to call her Yoga Cat because she would just like stretch down the downward dog and then not move. Sometimes for like 2 minutes. She loved plastic bags. Not in like she wanted to chew on them or something. She just, if she saw a grocery bag, her eyes got really big, her whiskers pushed forward. Like every time we came home from the grocery store, just throw the bags on the floor in a pile and she would run through them screaming, having so much fun. It was like the highlight of her day. And she also had this little annoying tendency. After we got her, we had to replace like all of our litter box because she has what some people call elevator butt. So when she peed, she would start standing up. And so we had to get storage bins and use those for litter boxes because we need something with high enough walls but was big enough for our fat cats. And she almost would turn it into an Olympic sport. I don't know how you could even say that. The way my cat peed was so funny, but she would pee on one leg. Just put her front paws on the rim of the box, lift one leg up, and just, like, she was doing a speedrun category where you try to touch as little litter as possible. Actually, once when Peek was a baby and I was, you know, keeping him separated in my room, I had a small litter box set up for him because, you know, he was like 4 or 5 weeks old. He couldn't make it into the big containers. And Lily decided she was gonna use it, and she ended up hosing down my sketchbook. I was so upset. And when she would jump on my desk, I have a drawing tablet that I basically always leave plugged in because I use the hotkeys and stuff all the time. And she liked to go and push all the buttons, and she would bookmark like 5 tabs, open up a bunch of new windows, and it was always her favorite place to just go and sit right on my drawing tablet, sometimes while I was trying to draw, just pushing every single button she could. Actually, I had to tape a piece of cardboard over my power button on my computer because otherwise she would go to jump on my desk, launch herself off my computer, and hit the power button to turn it off as she went up. I lost progress on things so often because of that. I was like, okay, that's not even counting the amount of time she just hit my keyboard on the way up and just mess with all my documents. She was also very peculiar about water. She didn't want the bowl. She wanted a glass. As much as I'd like to say it's something that just started when she got diagnosed with kidney disease, that would be a lie. She was stealing water glasses for as long as I can remember. But she always would steal my water. If I turned my back, she would stick her whole face in my water glass. And sometimes she'd dip her paw and lick her paw, and she just, I don't know, she did that to be quirky. And even at breakfast, you know, I would give her a bowl of food and then give her her own little glass of water. It's like, okay, fresh water. Cats like fresh running water. So you'd think that she would really like the fountain when I got one, but I actually retired that really quickly. It was too much of a pain to clean, and I found out when I put a bowl of water beside the fountain, the cats wanted the bowl instead. So she was not a fountain girly. She just wanted the freshest water available, and if she didn't see you pour it, it wasn't fresh enough. There was even a couple times when I was refilling the water dishes. Like, she just couldn't wait and would literally start drinking as I'm filling the bowl. She was also kind of like no nonsense. Like, if one of our other cats was being too loud in a bunker, she would essentially tell him to shut up by walking over and slapping him across the face. We'd be like, oh, show some sympathy, he's scared or something. She's like, no, shut up, you're being annoying. She's even done it to Bowie a few times. He's been too excited about mealtime. He just, they're, and she just runs up and is like, hey, shush, being noisy. She also liked to play with mirrors sometimes. And my parents have a mirror on the back of their door. She would get the zoomies, and then she'd run into that room and pull out the mirror and close herself in there and then scream and scream for someone to let her out because, God, this poor cat just trapped herself. So you'd let her out, and 2 minutes later she'd do it again. And it was totally purposeful. She knew exactly what she was doing. She also, for some reason, liked to scratch at my screen. She'd do it even while my screen was off. I think she just did it to annoy me. My monitor actually has some scuffs from her claws. And she had this weird obsession with rubber. If something was rubber, it was like catnip to her. And catnip made her mean. So she just wanted to rub all over it, lick it, and then if you try to take it away from her, she would bite you. So like she would go after the rubber handles on screwdrivers and the bottom of a magnetic parts tray and this like dust blower in my camera bag. She just, God, there's so much about her that I don't even think I could fit into this video. Like, she wanted to be picked up. Like, she was perfectly capable of making the jump, but she would walk around and cry and give you a look because she wanted you to pick her up and set her where she wanted. The only way she ever wanted to be held was over your shoulder. No other way was acceptable. Just over the shoulder completely, like you could be hands-free and she would just balance there. And she would lift her head up and rub the back of her head on the back of your head. And she had the loudest mouth, but the quietest purr. And that was when you could hear it best. One thing that she also really liked was fresh laundry. I know that's not really a surprise, but like when she would see me pull my sheets out of the dryer, she'd get those big eyes and follow me. And before I could even like start to make the bed, I had to just throw them in a pile because she would immediately jump in, you know, and start digging through, just ready to nest in and curl up. It even got to a point. We just had the dryer open. She would sometimes just hop in to try and sleep in the warm clothes. It scared us. We were like, one day we're gonna shut the door and not know she's in there. And she just started like hanging out in the laundry basket, and as we were putting laundry in it, she would just go in and be like, yes, fill me with warm clothes. You know, the other day I washed my sheets. She got to curl up in the warm pile, just the way she always liked. One last time. I know we had 15 years with her, which is really good for a cat. We honestly thought if any of our cats could live to be 20, it would be her. But unfortunately, sometimes these things just happen, and you can't do anything about it. She truly was one of a kind. She was my baby and my best friend. So nice. This is so nice. Lily! Okay, we're gonna have a problem. I have a cat who likes jumping on keyboards and pushing buttons. We're not gonna do that, okay? We're not gonna push buttons. No, you... Okay, you want to push buttons!
Does anybody else see this? She's on my chair. Literally.
I assumed our time was forever. Naturally seemed forever. Those happy days we spent together. 'Cause you were always beside me. Then suddenly I realized these happy days won't ever last. Out of all the souls we create, in fact, how we met was a miracle. I say you peacefully, you're in your dreams. seems calm.